Welcome to the Going Green podcast, and today we're going to look at a thought that's on our minds at the moment about gas shortages for winter.
Yes.
We're starting to get towards winter. As they say, winter draws on. Draws on. Okay, and basically we start to use more gas, and if we use more gas and more electricity, then basically we are going to be having a little problem because there is less gas around. So most of the gas we use has come from Norway, hasn't it? A fair bit. We get some from the North Sea, but we've actually bring some from Norway. And now with the Russian sort of sabotaging the pipeline and probably going to get worse. They're probably going to cut some of the others later.
Well, it's one of those things where currently the latest news is they've actually increased supply through Austria to Italy. Just as one of those daft, dumb things.
I don't understand, do you?
No, it is. But yes, there's a major crisis happening in relation to, of course, Europe is receiving less Russian gas. So, of course, Europe is scrambling to get gas from other places. Now, here in the UK, we get mainly our gas from Norway. That's fine, through the North Sea. That's fair enough. But the problem is, you see, Europe, because of all the Russian gas crisis and problems, they've been getting getting gas from Norway.
Instead of us, yes.
Well,
there's only so much,
There's
isn't
only
there?
so much. So it's one of those things where we've been unable to, so instead of getting the out of the slice of pie, Norway's been sending, 3/4 of the pie to Europe, as opposed to what we were receiving was half the pie. So, it is one of those things where you look at how everything's been pushed and moved around is a major problem. And so, anyway, in relation to all the shortages and those sorts of things, of course, Ofgem, the gas and energy regulator, I'm not sure if they do, they've said that, of course, we've only got approximately 7 days of gas supply here in the UK.
That's our storage, isn't it?
And that's, yeah.
So we can store, we can store up to about 7 days worth of gas in our basic system, in our store. So when in fact we brought in some LPG from another country, we could only store so much of that, and a lot of that went to Europe, which have got much bigger gas stores, haven't they? And they've been basically filling their stores to maximum capacity so that basically they can ride out the winter.
Yes, and that's fair enough. That's no problem. We're not denying that one. It's just one of those things where there is less gas going around, and of course you're seeing people worried about the energy mix and sort of have the problems in relation to because there's a shortage. That means the gas goes up price wise, and and of course the major problem with all these things, of course, is that nearly I was reading 30% of all electricity, or more than that in relation to Europe as well, is actually generated from gas.
Yeah, so if there's a gas shortage, it also means there's going to be an electricity shortage. And by an electricity shortage, you can do that in one of two ways. You can either make sure that everyone doesn't have enough electricity, brownouts, or you can do electricity rationing, which is you switch off this city, that city, and another city, and we just sort of keep switching cities off and then switching them back on and let another one sort of suffer for a while. And that happened to me when I was a child, and we had some sort of strikes, and the gas supplies got switched off for quite a few hours. That was a problem because when we had to they put the gas back on, you had to relight all the pilot lights, and that caused an awful lot of problems, and they didn't like doing that, and they were very worried about various things. And my mother even caused even more problems with that one. I'll tell you that story in a minute. And electricity rationing also happened, which meant that we didn't have electricity for periods of time. There was a gentleman round the corner from me that decided that to save electricity, he would actually put dimmer circuits on all the lights, and the family sat in dim light because that was saving electricity.
Now, admittedly, in those days, of course, you were talking about a 100-watt bulb.
Oh, yes.
So the amount of light getting out for the electricity was very much reduced.
Except the energy was actually being put into the big resistors that they actually had in the dimmer circuits in those days.
Yes. Whereas now, you see, it's all, little tiny cheap LEDs, as in the electricity generating, or the light generation part of it is so much more efficient than the old bulb. So it's one of those odd things where, as you say, if you're using less light because, of course, you're using an LED bulb, well, you think, you can have how many lights you can have on for the same one bulb earlier. That's the way forward. But of course, the next part of all that, of course, means that you can have more LEDs for the same. Whereas you used to have only a few light bulbs, loads of people are now having more tiny little LED lights because, of course, they are so cheap to run. They are so good at doing that.
But in our house, we can now light the whole house for the equivalent cost of one 60-watt light bulb.
Yes.
So, that does make a difference. In this last time we had electricity rationing, when I was a child, our neighbour across the road had a lighting set. He had a generator with lots of lights. And what he kindly did, he actually put the lighting set across the street. So that was street lighting. And he put it through about 4 or 5 houses that were across the road. And we all had light. So when the whole of the town went dark, our little road had street lights. Admittedly, they were strung lights, and we had lights in our house. It went in through a window, went round the house, and then out and into the next house. And we survived quite nicely there, unlike sort of the rest of the people. Yeah, but I don't think I fancy doing that now. And I live in a different house, and my neighbour's long gone, and so's the lighting set. So we need a different system.
Yes, the answer is it's the getting the power is one of those crucial things. And unfortunately, and just happened through circumstances, of course, France has reduced its, I wouldn't say electrical generation capacity. It's basically turned off quite a few of the nuclear power stations it operates.
And that's not through spite or anything, is it? That's not trying to cut them deliberately. That's because of...
Well, the answer is they're down for maintenance, which is one of those odd things where, are you sad or that they're down? And the reason, of course, they're down for maintenance is because they were meant to be down for maintenance approximately 9 months ago. And 9 months ago from now is approximately when we're in the previous energy crisis. I say energy. It's one of the things, we're going from crisis to crisis over winter. But it's one of the things where the price of gas was going up because, of course, at that time, Russia was decreasing the amount of gas being exported. So suddenly everybody needed electricity. So that's why they had to, and we were coming out of COVID and all. Yeah, it was a perfect storm in relation last year to needing to keep the power of these things on. And so, of course, France kept the things on. And I think at that time we were reporting that, of course, they couldn't export power to the UK because, of course, that power conductor, the interchange or whatever they called, that was down. Remember, that had some problems. Anyway, so now this time
it's up, and we're supplying them with about 7%.
It's 7% of France's overall power. As I said, that just shows you how much power France is requiring. But yeah, we're getting their slice of pie elsewhere and through other things. Today, we could be doing sort of something 8 because of this huge We got quite a intense low pressure system flowing through, and of course it's going across the UK into the North Sea, and that's where all the wind turbines are. And it's not a strong one, but it's a fairly stable sort of.
So we're going to see quite high wind sort of produced by the wind turbines. That actually is good. If we could actually plan for a mild and windy winter, our gas consumption would not be so much because of basically it's not so cold, and our electricity consumption could go up because we're not using the gas to supply that, but instead we're using wind turbines, which we've got quite a lot of.
So it's one of those things where there is these all different plans, and we don't know what's going to happen. And one of the major things, of course, they do say is everything's at risk. They didn't say whether it's confirmed or anything, but unfortunately, we would like this mild, I say warm winter, and very rusty to sort of help us through. Except, of course, meteorologists have also looked at the longer rain forecast, looking at things of the weather patterns, and the answer is there is no signal of a mild winter. They actually reckon it's going to be quite a cold one, and very quick in relation to it's going to get cold very quickly and then just stay not frozen. That's the wrong way to put it,
But
cold throughout the whole winter, as opposed to last winter where it was actually I wouldn't say super warm, but it was.
it was quite mild. We
mild.
didn't have any snow in this country, did we?
No.
Really? Well, we did in some of the parts of the country, but for where we live in, which is in the southern part of England, we had very, very little sort of snow, if any.
So there's a whole push in relation to sort of, not once again the perfect storm is being made, but sort of, the answer is things could be a lot worse depending on the situation of, let's say we have a colder winter. That means, of course, we need more gas, and that's a problem. I know that one of the major government advice at the moment, of course, is, or in relation to all the things, is, of course, winter is coming, the pun intended. So why don't you sort of start insulating? Because because of course they're saying that if you insulate your house better, then of course you use less gas, which will do two things. Or firstly, reduce your gas bill, which is a problem anyway in relation to, and then the other thing, of course, is then if you're using less gas, then of course, then
that helps.
It helps all over the place.
So we could actually cut down on our gas consumption. So if the government could be sort of setting sort of some COVID style measures this winter, maybe we could sort of increase our gas supply of 7 days to a massive 8.
Yes, the answer is, it's one of those things where if we cut our energy demand for gas and technically for electricity, but by about 20%, that saves us 1 day of gas storage. Now, that means in total we have, if the gas supply cut out, we have 8 days, or technically 7 at the moment. But if he saves, we would have 8. And of course, that means, how long is it going to take for a shipment of gas to come through? And the answer is
6 months. Yeah.
Well,
no,
it's not quite as bad, but you can suddenly sort of say it's in that relation of if everything goes to poo, that's where we've got the storage and the supply to do so. But the major point about all this is that not that we have a secret weapon up our sleeve, because of course Europe has also got the same secret weapon, so it's not that really secret. But the answer is that when the Ukrainian Russian invasion of Ukraine, I'll get the right.
Yeah, get it round the right way.
Right, happened, of course. The UK government were trying to decommission all its coal power plants, and they all stopped decommissioning all the coal power plants for this funny reason. Yeah. And to be honest, Europe did exactly the same. Yeah, it's, as I said, it's one of those things. And so one of the critical things that could happen, you see, is that yes, gas supply goes, but of course the energy, as in the electricity, generated from coal. Now,
We don't want that.
we don't want that, but of course, if you can't generate electricity from gas, then you can generate it from coal, and we just have to suffer the consequences of climate for that. It's one of those sad things to say. It's sort of, who is the enemy of the climate? And the answer is it's technically not, I wouldn't say us.
But I think Russia could come up with a big sort of hand here. They've managed to sort of sabotage, and we don't know it's the Russians. In fairness, nobody knows it's the Russians that have done this. But Nord Stream 1 and 2 have been damaged and producing an awful lot of methane into the atmosphere.
They said they stopped because obviously,
yeah, they have cut it off now, so it's not doing so much. But you've got an enormous amount of gas that was released, methane. That's 40 times more greenhouse lethal, I suppose, or unfriendly than the carbon dioxide. And even daft as it seems, if they'd set it on fire, that would have actually mitigated a lot of the situation from that enormous amount of methane that was produced and detected, well, even over the UK. And where's it heading now? The Arctic.
Well, it's going, welcome to weather patterns. The answer is it's a gas, it goes up, and the weather patterns are just blowing it through. And of course, at the time, Jetstream is pointing it towards the Arctic, so that's where it sort of went. Not the most exciting bit of news, but they were talking about sort of in relation to how much methane was outputted. They were saying that it's actually relating to probably sort of 5 years worth of the European climate sort of fixing. That's how much gas was released, which is the whole crux of the problem.
And if we have to move because of this gas shortage to coal, that's going to increase that from 5 years to, well, probably 10.
Well, I was going to say, you go on to
definitely
6 or 7.
6.
It depends on just how long we need to burn the coal for. See, the hope is we don't burn any coal, but it's sort of, if we burn a little bit, then we could just scrape by increasing things. But if we have to burn a lot of coal, that's when it sort of...
It does depend, in fact. Some coal burning is not as bad as other coal burning. Now, typically, a lot of the coal that come from Germany, they use lignite, brown coal, and that is sort of quite sooty and quite a lot of sulfur in it. Whereas some of the coal that you can use, anthracite, for instance, is a much better, cleaner burning coal, producing less sort of toxic things. And you can clean a lot of basically the gases coming out of one of these sort of power stations. Except, of course, not many of them do that. So although we could do it, probably we couldn't do it in the time. And do we want to invest in doing that when it makes much more sense to buy invest in more wind turbines or wave or solar or whatever?
So, absolutely. It is that we don't know, but we're prepared to do all sorts of things. It's one of those crucial, bizarre things. Of course, Europe previously, as you say, they were burning sort of this lignite, because of course that's what they had. But of course, what we now know is through other geopolitical arrangements, Australia isn't supplying China with its coal, and it's instead in supplying Europe with its coal, mostly Poland and sort of the Eastern European countries.
So they are getting better coal.
So the answer is they're actually getting better coal, than actually they were than they were using before. So as I said, so unlike previously where they were burning the bad stuff, they might actually this time be burning relatively good, cleaner stuff. So it is still one of those things where it's not as bad as it looks, but don't get me wrong, it's bad. but like sort of, it's not sort of, we're scrambling a sort of emergency. It's more sort of, eventually we'll just have to do more. But the problem is a sort of, how much will all this put us back in
Yeah.
relation to all our
Well,
things?
you read to me a little article about how bad the winter was going to be, and you said, "Oh, we've got this sort of gas crisis coming up, and this electricity problem," and I thought, "Yeah, that sounds about right." And you said, but that wasn't this year. That was last year."
Yes, we as a foreboding, loads of the, as I said last year, we had a separate energy crisis because that's when energy prices were going up, and that was a problem then. We even got a new problem, of course. It is all related in this. It's the same, storm. It's the same problem. It's just this time, instead of Russia squeezing the taps, they've physically cut it off. So now it is the scrambling of everything. People have scrambled, but Europe scrambled to fill its gas stores to make sure that it could. They reported something like 85% full before Nord Stream was sabotaged. You look at those factors. Sort of, they've been deliberately trying to get as much gas as possible, but the problem is, you see, we've got enough gas for this year or this winter, but we're building from last winter where we had problems. This winter, we are going to have problems as formation of things, but next winter, where there won't be as much gas, because of course, unlike last time, unlike this year, where Europe,
Yeah, the stores will get lower and lower and lower.
Stores will get lower and lower and lower, and so next year, that's when the crux of the whole energy, fuel, gas problem will actually hit its highest, or the apex in relation to its the problems.
And that is because no countries managed to get enough renewables. Now, we have got lots of renewables, but we just don't have enough. Some startling facts: 4/5 of homes in the UK are heated by gas. Almost half of our electricity is produced by gas. I think we are probably one of the most gas-dependent countries in Europe. And that's because we moved from coal to gas, because we had a lot of labour disputes with the gas. We also had a wonderful North Sea industry, and basically the governments of the day basically shackled us to the gas, saying this is the great way of going about it. Subsequent previous governments didn't invest in nuclear. It's only recent governments that have, and that's because they had to, because it wasn't done. So we are still very dependent here on gas, but we shouldn't blame the lack of renewables on this. It is that we've just not bothered to invest in renewables because the gas has been there and it's been cheap, and it still is cheap. I know it's going up an awful lot, but you compare the price of gas compared with the cost of electricity, and it's still cheaper. And it makes sense, that, because if you buy gas and then you burn that gas to drive a turbine and generator, well, of course, you've got to add on the extra cost of all of that to make your electricity, which is why electricity is more expensive than gas. Yet we're trying to move everyone off of gas onto electricity. But that makes good sense from the point of view of going green.
Well, the whole crux of all these things, of course, is we are trying to do this energy transition. We are trying to transition from, the fossil fuels onto the renewables. We are trying to do that, and it's taking its time. But the problem is, you see, we're in the crisis now, and the time it's taking a long time to actually blow through all the renewables. we've got a huge number of wind turbines. How many wind farms have been built? As I said,
Well, not so many. We've been doing a lot of offshore, haven't we? We haven't been doing any onshore ones. That was sort of frowned upon because they didn't want that to happen. Now government policy has changed, and now we can get more land-based wind turbines. So we are going to see that going up, and we've still got more and more sort of offshore wind turbines, and the offshore ones make a lot of sense for more than one reason, but they make sense simply because, well, it's windy.
Well, this is the whole, let's take, a nice day like today where this pressure system blowing through. It's generating very much a lot of electricity from all the turbines. We can look at the mix currently and see that how much wind is blowing through, which is great, and that's fantastic. But it just shows you how much more, not power we're needing, but just sort of, we are sort of demanding more and more and more power. And so we're not unable to actually keep up with the demand in relation to renewables. But it's one of those things where, because gas has been so cheap, we haven't been worried about that. So we've been trying to slowly and steadily build the renewables up whilst we've got the clean, cheap gas. And then, when we get...
I'm not so sure about clean.
Well, this is the whole point of it all. But
less pollution, but still a lot of CO2, basically.
Yes. But as I said, everything's been put to shame, or put to the shambles, because, of course, the clean fuel is gone, or is about to vanish. And so we might now need to step back to, whilst we're still in this transition, you see, because, of course, daftly, Poland, a lot of coal power generators, they've been trying to build gas turbine ones, to replace the coal, because they want to be, all their incentives are going clean and green and become a bit more environmentally friendly. And now, of course, there's not any gas for them to use. So, of course, they've just invested all these gas turbines as this energy transition from coal to renewables. And suddenly they're now in the problem because there isn't any gas. So, they wasted all that money going.
Yeah, and they should have spent that money on going to solar, to wind, to... I don't think Poland can really manage much wave, but
A little bit.
Probably a little bit. Yeah. So, we've got an interesting problem about sort of using more and more power. Now, here we've got solar power. So that means that if we have a power cut, we also can't use our solar power either, because we put our extra power onto the grid, and you don't want to sort of someone, when you've got a power cut, to sort of still find there is power in the system. So when we get a power cut, our solar panels are also switched off, which is a bit sad, really, that we might have a power cut. We are generating all our own electricity. We wouldn't be taking any from the grid, but it'll actually have to be switched off because of safety reasons.
And that's the crux of the whole problem is the decisions of the past are now sort of coming back to bite us. And although we've been preparing for this storm that's been slowly taking place, everybody sort of went quiet over the summer. Well, no problem. But of course, all these things have reappeared. We're looking at all these articles from last year. They read exactly the same headlines as they are now. Nothing's changed in relation to all the problems. But the problems now are being caused by not today's problems, but will we actually be able to survive for the next upcoming winters, as opposed to in the here and now? And that's the major point of doing all these renewable things and green investments. So we'll see how that gets pushed.
You have been listening to the Going Green podcast, looking at our thoughts on what might be some gas shortages coming up this winter. Next week, we'll be back with another topic on Going Green. Until then, it's goodbye from me and
A goodbye from me.
take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.